Listen, America is swiftly collapsing, but don't just take my words for it. I actually compiled the top 3 to 4 kingdoms that have fallen. And guess what? There is an actual pattern here that we can see with each kingdom. I'm talking about ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, and now America. Let's get into the video because this is going to blow your mind. The collapse of America is not a conspiracy. It's not just something that's trending online. It is already happening. Now listen, there was such demand for this video because the video I posted yesterday, if you are not aware, you should go back to Journey With Us and see the previous video. Because as I was speaking, I was like, oh my goodness, you know what I'm seeing right now as I'm speaking? I'm a writer, a creative, a dreamer, a strategist, all the things, a marketing analyst. And so a lot of times when I'm talking, I will just see images in my head, okay? And the images I saw were the 4 collapsed kingdoms that I'm telling you about today. I'm adding America to the list with those kingdoms because they are looking exactly like them. Now let's start with ancient Egypt, the empire that tried to enslave the promised. Now, most of us from the West, our first thought when we think of ancient Egypt is Exodus 8:1. Let my people go that they may serve me. This was the message that the Most High was giving to his servant Moses. And listen, Egypt was the first global superpower to enslave the descendants of a promise, the children of Israel. Its collapse began not with military defeat, but with a hardened heart against deliverance. Now, ancient Egypt was one of those kingdoms that had survived for so long. Like, they had dynasties of pharaohs, they had all of their gods and the pantheon of deities. They had probably one of the longest runs in history, or at least the most well known, also partially for their pyramids and their culture and all of the things that accompany ancient Egypt. But today, if you look at Egypt, it does not look like the ancient Egypt used to look. And listen to this. In the Ipuwer Papyrus, a 13th century BCE Egyptian document housed in the Dutch National Museum, we read, ooh, this is something. The river is blood. The servants run away. The wealth of Egypt is no more. The secular record eerily confirms that biblical plagues were happening, showing us the fall of Egypt was national, agricultural, spiritual, and economic. These are the 4 patterns we want to watch for. Take notes, write it down, pause the video. We are going to look for, with all of these empires that we're talking about, we are looking for the agricultural, the spiritual, the national, and the economic, because Pharaoh had an obsession with control, which actually is starting to look a lot like some Western systems, right? Money was centralized and food was centralized. Food was centralized through Genesis 41 and 47, okay? So the government owned the food, they owned everything. And the government was what helped the people eat every day, right? And then their money failed in Genesis 47 and 15. The people sold their land and their children to eat. Now, the modern day take on this is like the SNAP program, the WIC program, digital food stamps becoming programmable under CBDCs. You're seeing a type of modern Pharaoh super surveillance system, right? And I think if any of the pharaohs were alive, they would absolutely love America and the things that they're doing right now. Just saying. And get this, America is soon to do relief programs in exchange for biometric tracking. They're actually talking about tracking the births of certain children, especially in the state of Georgia. You may say, well, how do you know? Because I have family there that are literally telling me that that's what's happening because they've just given birth and they have incentives to give basically like a new social security number to their child if they agree with some type of biometric program. It's getting really weird. Let's just put it like that. But as if that was not enough, we know that ancient Egypt was such a a brutal kingdom when they enslaved the children of Israel. I remember writing a paper in college. I actually still have it. I was reading it the other day, and how much the society depended on the Nile, but even their great source of food, which was the Nile, and they had like a Nile River goddess, that great source of food was stopped at the hand of judgment. And can you imagine being in ancient Egypt at that time? If you were an Egyptian and you were like, we're the greatest kingdom, we speak all these languages, we have these pyramids, we have these gods, we have this, we have everything. Everybody comes to us. And then to see that judgment can come to the door, not only judgment, but then that there are plagues and layers associated with the decline of Egypt. Now get this, I brought out this timeline from the Australian Museum website. Now we're going to look at ancient Egypt, and I'm going to run through this trying to be a little bit fast because I know that I talk a lot about these topics, but your girl is a homeschool teacher, okay? So I love to teach. But the pre-dynastic period of Egypt, which was before 3100 BCE, had some historical events, like Egypt being divided into the upper and lower quadrants, art movements, the discovery of hieroglyphic writings, two-dimensional imagery and symbolism being established, grid systems to regulate proportions established, painted pottery figurines, ivory carvings, slate cosmetic plates, relief design developed from drawing, and high quality, richly designed ceramics. So this is like the art capital of the world. Now let's go to the early dynastic period. This is where you start to see these lineages and families of pharaohs. 3100 BCE to 2686 BCE. Dynasties 1 and 2, you see the unification of Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt by the first pharaoh Menes. Memphis is the capital city. The strong central government supports the work of scribes, sculptors, and other artists who are using new artistic methods. So this is like the art time of Egypt. Then we have the Old Kingdom. 2686 to 2181 BCE. Now these are dynasties 3 through 6. They have the collapse of the central government that leads to local art styles developing. So they were very much based on an art economy. The first images were formed, paintings started to develop, large numbers of pyramids began to be constructed. The fourth dynasty, you saw the Great Sphinx being constructed, which everyone knows today. The fifth dynasty, the decoration inside of the pyramids introduced. The statues of kings and temples as part of the royal cult were all over this place. And then we see a change in the first intermediate period from 2181 to 2125 BCE. Egypt is split. This is why the scriptures state that a kingdom divided cannot stand. Get this. It makes me literally think of America, but we're going to get into that later in the video because other civilizations did the same. During this time, Egypt splits into two smaller states, ruled by Memphis in the north and Thebes in the south. The civil disorder lasts for 150 years. Get that. There is civil disarray in this ancient, great kingdom where these pyramids are up and these hieroglyphics and the arts and the crafts and the this and the that. But there is disorder that lasts for a while. And then we have the Middle Kingdom, 2125 to 1650 BCE, with dynasties 11 through 13. So they have more types of deities and structures being raised up. They have coffins imitating bodies, mummies, these different jars sculpted in human appearance, different things of that nature. But as we're going down, a lot of people believe that Moses and the people of Israel were there during either the second intermediate period or the Middle Kingdom dynasty, okay? And so you can see ancient Egypt was around for a very long time. Soon they start to have their first female pharaoh, and we're getting into an interesting time. You see Tutankhamun, you see Ramses II ruling, you see political stability and economic prosperity supporting the abundance of still art movements and masterpieces. But soon, ancient Egypt falls for the first time. This is the third intermediate period. Ancient Egypt begins to fall to their neighbors, the Nubians and the Libyans. They still have art movements, but it's almost like a type of ancient colonization that's taking place, an occupation. And after this time, you're quickly going to see that the Ptolemaic period takes place. This is where you have a switch from Egypt to now ancient Greece. Let's talk about Greece. Greece is one of those that's just, I remember studying Greeks in college as well. I took a world religions class. I love history, if you cannot tell. And in world religions, it was basically almost like a geography class as well, and a historical class. But in world religions, we learned about Greece and how, I'm going to say strange some of it was, okay? But let's just talk about it. Let's break this down. Where ancient Egypt's main issue was control, and then coming under different Libyan, Nubian occupations, and then being taken over by the Ptolemies, and then ancient Greece being able to expand and occupy Egypt. After that, Egypt basically dissipated. The ancient Egypt that you had was basically occupied. Yes, Egypt still exists today. We know it's still on the map, but it does not exist in the function that it did in its high time, obviously. And so instead, Greece now has a problem. Their main issue is the idol of intellect and gender rebellion. Let me know if that sounds familiar. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Romans 1:22. Greece birthed democracy, logic, philosophy. Some may say stole it. And yet drowned itself in sexual confusion and idolatry of the mind. Here's an example. In Plato's Symposium, relationships between older men and teenage boys were described as divinely inspired. Get this was a little weird, and it reminds me of just some particular places that are in America. Let me know down below if you know what I'm talking about. The Temple of Aphrodite in Corinth was home to over 1,000 Lex workers, if you know what I mean, religiously sanctioned, like actual Lex workers in the temples, 1,000 religiously sanctioned under the Greek priests. And in Athens, there were more statues to gods than people. And among them, hermaphroditic idols, goat humans, and sexualized animals were also common. Their motto, know thyself. Y'all's truth, the heart is deceitful above all things. Jeremiah 17:9. This spirit of gender confusion, post-truth, destroyed the country. And this sounds so familiar to America. This is what tells you they have some ties to that ancient Greek culture, okay? Because that's exactly, if you would just look back to the time President Obama was in office and that legislation that came to pass, you see a degradation of the society. And Greece started to degrade and basically corrupt itself because a society and a world cannot function on that principle. That just doesn't work. You're created to be fruitful with a man and a woman and multiply, and that's just it, period. There's no other way. And listen, right now, global fertility rates in Western nations have dropped below 1.5 children per woman, just like late stage Athens before its collapse. Shout out to the United Nations fertility data status of 2023. Now, we have the new rise of AI gods and chatbots and rituals and new age divination. This reflects the Greek hunger for knowledge, intelligence, philosophy without righteousness. Here's the main takeaway from the fall of ancient Greece. Greece fell when identity became an experiment and truth became relative, subjective. It was wisdom imploded. Now, ancient Egypt fell. Ancient Greece falls. Again, ancient Egypt had a control, surveillance type of pride issue, type of like, oh, you know, we are the best. There's nothing but us. And then they realize, oh, people can actually colonize and occupy our land. And then that leads to other colonizations like the Greeks. But then the Greeks realized, oh, snap, this type of situation we have going on with Lex workers and stuff, and how they're having the paintings on the wall in ancient Greece and some of these different gods that they have, it didn't really pan out. It really showed that lust is not sustainable for their culture. And so, welcome to ancient Rome, when pagan empire worship devours itself from the inside out. For the mystery of iniquity is already at work. 2 Thessalonians 2:7. Rome was mighty. It conquered most of Europe, parts of Asia, and Africa. Think about it. The Holy Roman Empire. It even crucified the Messiah, but it rotted from within. And so you're thinking, what did Rome worship? Well, the emperor became a deity. Caesar is Lord. That's what they thought. Coins bore his face and inscriptions of his divinity, which kind of sounded like ancient Egypt and ancient Greece, right? Festivals honored drunkenness, lust, and child sacrifice. And it's kind of sounding similar to Greece, isn't it? And then right after this, they started to experience something called economic collapse, meaning there's a pattern we can see here with drunkenness, lust, and child sacrifice, bringing forth a mass spirit of economic instability, poverty, okay? Rome debased its currency by replacing silver with copper, okay? Similar to the US doing what? Removing the gold standard in 1971. It ran on unpaid labor. Oh, isn't that how America was built? I don't know. Y'all leave a comment down below if America was built like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, huh? And get this. By 476 AD, Rome was bankrupt. Its citizens begged for bread while emperors, well, they were hosting orgies. Okay? That's what they were doing. Now, here's an ancient source. Roman historian Tacitus lamented, "We worship wealth. We desire nothing but pleasure. Discipline has become hate speech." Oh, doesn't that sound like the West, particularly America? Now let's look at today. Let's zoom into modern times. The U.S. debt is $34.9 trillion as of August 2025. The dollar is no longer trusted by the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, or by OPEC, which functions in the Middle East, or most of Africa for that matter. Drag shows for children, temple-like stadiums for sports like the Greeks, an Amazon-style feast for the soul, but famine for the spirit and for the land. Now here's your takeaway for ancient Rome. Rome's beast system mirrored Babylon, and America has copied the exact blueprint. Now this leads us to none other than America. If you look at the history of the founding fathers of America, where they're from, and the history of the people who started the nation that is America, you will find ties back to two places, Great Britain, and Great Britain also goes back to Rome, okay? Just so you know, there's just a little FYI for you. He causes all to receive a mark so that no one can buy or sell. Revelations 13:16-17. America is not Rome, it's not Greece, it's the final phase of Babylon. Its strength is the appearance of freedom while secretly building digital surveillance change. See, what makes America so strange is that it mixes these patterns from all of the ones we've previously spoken about. That's why it's referred to as Mystery Babylon, because you're like, why does it mix all of these things? Why does it mimic Egypt and have super surveillance, super control, super pride, literally cities in America being named Memphis after Memphis in Egypt, okay? Then we flip over to Greece. Why does it also kind of take after certain gods and these lustful festivals and celebrations in Hollywood and all these things? But then why is it also literally descendant from ancient Rome? Through their own blueprint that they have, Roman architecture, Roman buildings, Roman culture, essentially. Now let's look at the control part of America, because it is very live and well if you watch that video that I did yesterday. U.S. sanctions have been placed on over 35 nations in the last 20 years. Treasury.gov, check it out. Now, threats to ban South Africa from the SWIFT network function as a financial exile. This is Surveillance Economy 101. Apple Face ID, TSA facial scans, voice print banking, and AI-generated ID scores. People are not just being tracked, they are being scanned like robots, scored and stored as if they're some kind of product. And, you know, America is also the home of false prophet media. CNN and Fox both peddle state-sponsored narratives and sow divides within the country. The two horns speak like a dragon. They are wounded, but still alive and somewhat well to an extent. America's economy has collapsed twice since the 1930s depression and the 2008 recession. Yet, it still speaks as if it's a global king with authority. This is the beast with the head wounded, but healed through child sacrifice and confusion. Now, unfortunately, America brings forth about 600,000 abortions every single year. Drag shows in the libraries, biometric vaccines that are parallel to like Nazi Germany, right? Because in 1932, Germany had inflation, surveillance, mass unemployment, and ethnic scapegoating. Scapegoating. Does that ring any bells? In 2025, the US has digital IDs, citizen blacklisting, media psyops, and travel bans based on ideology. Whew. America is not just falling. Listen, it's being positioned for Revelations level enforcement, economic, biometric, and ideological. And here's the conclusion of the matter. This is a pattern, not a mystery, because each empire has shown us something that's very interesting. Here's the core issue. You have an empire that has core sin. This triggers in the spirit realm a collapse, okay? Then there's a prophetic parallel. Think about Egypt and the enslaved, divine judgment and exodus. Now think about the CBDCs, food control, and plagues that are kind of coming into fruition in modern day. Then we have Greece, which is the idolatry of the mind and gender, moral rot and infertility, which is literally happening right now in America with the new gender rebellion and AI idolatry. Then Rome, worship of empire, of self, of do as thou wilt, right? Isn't that like the theme of Rome? And, their currency crashed and chaos ensued, and Rome, is just now Italy. So there's that. And then, of course, with the US, we have the dollar collapse, potentially an impending civil event, deception, and the digital beast, sanctions, biometrics, and lies. Revelations 13 in plain sight. And listen, you are not coming across this video by accident. If you are in Babylon, leave with wisdom and not fear. Understand that these patterns will come to pass. It is already falling, crashing. No one can stop it. No one can fix it. It is going to happen. If you've left physically, cleanse spiritually. If you've left spiritually, warn others. This is the time of your Goshen. Storehouses, scrolls, and strategies. By faith, Noah being warned of things not yet seen, moved with godly fear, and prepared an ark. Hebrews 11, verse 7. Let the ark be built for the next generation, if you have the tenacity, strength, and faith to do it. Shalom, shalom. I'll see you in the next video. Let me know what you thought of this down below, because I'm seeing patterns. I don't know. Maybe are you seeing the patterns too? It seems like the signs are very clear, even for economists and historical researchers. A lot of them, even if they don't read the scriptures, they understand that a collapse for America is inevitable. Shalom.